Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh, Blissett, and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You're listening to or watching Service Business Mastery Podcast, and I am not sitting virtually next to my co-host, Joshua Crouch. He is not with us today. It will just be myself and Miss Crystalynn Shelton, and we are going to talk about QuickBooks and the 3 costly mistakes that you can make with QuickBooks. And it's not all about taxes. We're also going to talk a little bit about her book, but I don't want to forget to mention that because it's in the 5th edition. Well, it's coming out in 2024 in January, I think she said, Mastering QuickBooks 2024 on Amazon. And if you want to get, like, if you don't want to wait till January, I know it's just a month from now, but you can get the 2023 version of it. But I'm super excited to talk about this. There's things that always confuse me about QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online. And it's one of those things where it's easy for us to kind of ignore it if you don't know it. And even if you have a CPA or a bookkeeper, it's still important that you are familiar with the product and this. You know, if you use QuickBooks, I know some people who are listening use other softwares, but it's still important to know how to read it and how to access things, because heaven forbid you have to do something on a Saturday night and you don't have access to your bookkeeper. So yeah, but anyways, we're going to talk about that, and I'm super excited to have Miss Crystalynn on the show. We've actually booked this recording several times, but we had scheduling conflicts and we had to reschedule it, and so and then today Josh isn't able to come at the last minute, so it's just, we're going to make this happen though. We're going to have this conversation, but I'm super excited to talk to her today. And if anybody has any questions at all about anything, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. And also, if you aren't already subscribed, click the subscribe button. If you're watching this live on YouTube, click that bell notification also. With that being said, let's get started with the show. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Tersh. I'm excited to be here.
So, can you give us a little bit of a background of yourself and kind of what you do? I know whenever we schedule these calls, we are always talking about, or one of the questions that I ask, and I don't talk about this all the time, but is when you think of your childhood, what smell comes to mind? And for you, you put Mexican food. And so it's now, are you from like anywhere that's like close to Mexico, or is you just like the Mexican food?
I am. So I was actually born in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Okay, very good.
And so, yeah, Mexican food was a big part of my childhood. You know, we had tons of Mexican bakeries, and my mom made Mexican food all the time. So it was just one of those things that
we
was
eat
a big part of my childhood.
We eat Mexican food probably, I'd say, at least once a week, if not.
Yeah,
it's kind of our go-to thing. If we're not feeling like cooking, we have 2 great Mexican restaurants that are like 7 minutes away, and it's kind of a juggle for which one we're going to go to, because they're both really good. So but
I think being from Texas, it's kind of like required that you like Mexican food.
Yeah. Now, do you like authentic Mexican food, or kind of like a Tex-Mex, or like a Americanized version? Because like we get the cheese, like that's my kids. It's like we're gonna eat cheese with a little bit of Mexican food.
I like authentic Mexican food.
Uh-huh.
Down in Corpus Christi, that's pretty much how I grew up. I mean, one of our favorite places was the Tamale Shack.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can't get any more authentic than that.
Hmm.
Not these sit down white tablecloth restaurants. No. I like
Oh,
the
yeah.
real deal.
If it's not spilling out across like down your shirt,
That's
like
right.
it's not really.
In a,
Uh,
in a in a paper container, yeah, with lots
yeah,
of napkins.
absolutely. Cool. So what's your background when it comes to QuickBooks and primarily QuickBooks Online, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, so I actually I'm a licensed CPA, and back in 2010 is when I left the corporate world to pursue my business as a consultant for small businesses. So
Okay.
I got certified in QuickBooks. At the time, it was actually QuickBooks Desktop, and later on, QuickBooks Online came about. But yeah, so I'm certified in both platforms. And so I've been servicing small businesses since that time with basically educating them on the importance of managing their books and giving them some of those basics when it comes to bookkeeping, right? So my focus is always the do-it-yourselfers, those business owners that want to be involved, want to know what's going on, and frankly don't really have the budget to have someone come in and do their books full time. And so my approach is I assume the business owner has no accounting or bookkeeping background because that's typically the case.
Yeah.
So whether it comes to my book or doing one-on-one coaching sessions, that's my approach is, starting with the basics and just using really simple, easy to understand terminology so that they can understand, how to manage those books properly.
Yeah, if you're talking to me about it, you're really gonna have to dumb it down. Like it,
Yeah, I'm not talking debits and credits
yeah, so debits and credits
because they're going to
and
fall asleep on me.
oh gosh. And yeah, there's stuff where like I should know it way more. Like I've literally taken courses on QuickBooks certifications, like the Small Business
Yeah.
Chamber. Was it what is it? SBA.
SBDC?
SBDC, yeah, that's it. And I
Yeah.
took courses through them and I was like, I got to
Mhm.
learn this because
Mhm.
as much as I don't enjoy it, I feel like I'm definitely missing something. And then I'll know it for a couple months, but then
Right.
I'll forget
Yeah.
it, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm
Because
not
the
doing
key
it.
is if you don't use it, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. So with the small business owners, when I'm working with them, I encourage them to actually go into QuickBooks and practice what you've learned, or I give them some quote unquote homework. Here, I want you to go in, enter your invoices for the week, and then let's talk about it at the next session. Because you've got to apply it or you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
That's with anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now,
Hmm.
do you offer any kind of like fractional CFO or bookkeeping type things, or is that like do you ever talk to people about doing something like that if they just can't do it?
Hmm.
Because like
Yeah. So
there's times where I'm like I just can't. I can't afford to hire somebody to do certain things, but then
right.
I got to figure out a way to do it, you know?
Yes. So absolutely, we do offer bookkeeping services as well.
Okay.
And so that's definitely a service that we provide. My goal though is still to teach the small business owner a few things because at the end of the day, there's too many clients that come to me and they have been abandoned by their bookkeeper, you know. And so it's a scenario I see over and over again. And like you said, if you're on a Saturday, it's a Saturday
Hmm.
night and you need to invoice a customer for work you've done, it's not a good feeling to log into the software and you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Like a lot of small business owners. So
The
yeah,
worst thing in
but
the world is when I've ignored it for 6 months and then I'll
oh,
log into it and then they've done an update and the screen's changed and I'm like, oh
yes.
man, I was behind
Yes.
the 8 ball last time I logged in. Now I'm really behind the 8 ball. Like I'm just gonna wait till Monday and let somebody else do this.
Exactly. Yeah, and with QuickBooks Online being what they call a cloud-based product, believe it or not, they have updates monthly. I attend a webinar monthly just to cover the updates for the
I believe it.
previous that have taken place in the last month. So yeah, constantly changing.
That's software in general. Everything's changing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So let's dive into these three reasons, these three topics that you have here. What's the first one?
Yeah. So a lot of times people think that the main reason you have to keep your books up to date is because of taxes. And yes, that is a big reason why you need to keep your books up to date. But there's also other benefits to managing those books. One of them is being able to manage your cash flow better. A lot of small business owners struggle with cash flow. And one of the tools that I really love in QuickBooks Online is a cash flow planner. And with that cash flow planner, that tool will pull your information from your actual QuickBooks and utilize that to determine how much cash is required to meet your obligations, right? For the next month, 2 months, 3 months, however long you choose to enter that information for. And then the cool thing about the planner is you can also manually enter, maybe you know a customer payment that you're going to be receiving. You can enter that in. Maybe you know a large piece of equipment or other expense that's going to happen in the future. You can plug that in. And so while you're in this tool looking to see what your cash flow looks like, you're not touching your books. It's not affecting your books at all. These are like what if scenarios to give you an idea of what's coming. And so a lot of times if a business owner knows they're going to have a cash shortfall in the next 30 days or 60 days, they can plan better for it. They can actually pick up the phone, call that supplier and say, hey, I need extended terms on this bill that I owe you. Or let me contact my financial institution and see if I can get my credit line increased, right? You can sort of plan for those things.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why you really should stay on top of your books. If your books aren't updated, then the cash flow planner has no information to pull to even help you make that determination.
How often does it need to be updated? Like, it is the 15th of the month good enough for the previous month?
Yeah, so I said that's a great question. It really depends on the volume, right? Some business owners really should go in there weekly. And if you're doing it weekly, whether you have a lot of volume or a little volume, it's a lot less overwhelming, right? Every 7 days you're touching it. And so it's not this huge, I've got 6 months worth of transactions. I don't want to look at it. Let me find something else I'd rather do.
Yeah.
So I recommend weekly. If you don't have that type of volume, then, every other week, you just kind of have to feel it out for yourself. Definitely don't let it go more than a month. I'd say every 30 days, you definitely should be looking at it at a minimum. Okay. So that would be my recommendation. The second reason why you want to stay on top of your QuickBooks is it can actually help you to generate more sales. So what do I mean by that? So QuickBooks has quite a few preset reports, meaning you don't have to go in and build reports from scratch. There's hundreds of reports in QuickBooks you can generate in a matter of minutes. So by staying on top of your books, you generate those reports. They have updated information. So let's say, for example, you generate a product and service report to see what products and services have sold in the last month, 2 months, or for the whole year. And you can use that report to actually see what products and services haven't sold at all. And so it might be a great opportunity to talk to your marketing person or your social media person and say, hey, let's run a promotion to move these products that we haven't sold, or to sell these services that we haven't sold all year long. By the same token, you can run a report that shows you which customers have been purchasing from you. And so if there's customers that haven't made a purchase in a while, again, your marketing person can send an email blast to these folks, give them a coupon code, right? To come back and buy something from you, right? And so those types of things can actually help to boost sales. But if you don't have your QuickBooks updated, you won't have that information on those reports.
Yeah. So Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll let you do the last one before I ask a question. I got another
Okay.
question.
Yeah. And then I would say the last one, which really goes back to the first thing I said about managing cash flow, is the ability to get funding when you need it. So if you do need to contact your financial institution for to apply for a small business loan, to ask for an increase on your credit line, after they ask you, what are you going to do with the money? The next question is going to be, can you provide us with updated profit and loss so
Hmm.
we can see what your business has been doing? And again, if your QuickBooks isn't updated, you're not going to be able to provide that updated financial statement that they're going to require that you have. And so it's just super important, in a lot of different areas of your business to stay on top of your books other than taxes.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
So what happens if you have like a question about where things, because a P&L can be affected greatly if you put things in the wrong place. If you put
Yeah.
in an asset versus an expense or whatever.
Yep.
What where do we go to have some sort of guidance on
Mhm.
this needs to go above the line, this needs to go below the line, you know?
Yeah. So that type of information is what I call the bookkeeping basics.
Mhm.
So I actually cover that in a section called Small Business Bookkeeping 101 in my book, Mastering
Okay.
QuickBooks 2023 and 2024. I also cover that one on one with my clients who book coaching sessions. So some people they prefer to meet and talk as opposed to reading.
Yeah.
So I have that. And then I also have a self paced course that teaches you that as well.
Oh,
So a lot
cool.
of business owners are like, I'm not available during business hours, but I need to learn this. Okay,
Yeah.
buy my course and watch the videos and log into my private community and post your questions as you have them while you're going through the course.
Having a
So,
community like that, and I call them a mastermind community, a community of people who are able to get together and bounce
yes.
ideas off of each other, and not only like sometimes you feel like you're that person that's asking all the time, but then 6 months, a year later, all of a sudden
Mhm,
you're able to answer those questions to the new
mhm.
person that comes in because they eh,
Yeah.
you've experienced it and you've gone through that, and you're like, hey, look, I know exactly what you're talking about. I literally just went through that.
Yes.
Here's what you do. And so
Yeah.
it's like that givers gain mentality. So like having those
Mhm,
communities is amazing. Which
mhm,
like I love as the people that I hear that don't typically like those like type of scenarios are the ones who
mhm.
are never involved, or they're not,
Yeah.
they never check into the group, or they never
Right.
ask questions, answer questions, because even answering questions like as a mentor
Yeah.
to a mentee, there's still a satisfaction that you get. And you
Yeah.
also you stay on top of your game, because you have
Exactly.
to be able to, in order to teach someone else how to do it, you really have to know how to do it. So
Yeah.
or I
You
guess
do.
you could look like a fool on there. Be like, yeah, no, I was
You know,
wrong.
but but what you said is exactly right. The community really helps, especially solopreneurs, even people like myself. Sometimes you feel like you're out here all alone, and you're not. And you come to a community like that, and you realize, oh, I'm not the only one struggling with this. Cool.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, and then, like you said, being able to have those questions. Some people ask questions. Some people are shy. But the good thing is people ask questions that other people have that didn't
Yeah.
post and that
Hmm.
sort of thing. I absolutely love the fact that I love teaching. And so I don't think I mentioned this, or they may not have mentioned it in my bio, but I've also been an adjunct instructor at UCLA for
Oh,
about 10 years now. And
wow.
so there's no satisfaction like that of a student that's like, I
It
finally
clicks.
get this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the light bulb comes on and it's like,
Yeah.
yes, my work here is done.
The challenge that I have is I'm not a teacher. My mom's a teacher, wonderful
Oh,
teacher.
cool.
Yeah, and she teaches uh, special education now. But
Okay, awesome.
I think she's in elementary school. I could be wrong on that one, but she
Mhm.
was in high school and taught physics and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then she changed up, and she's a lifelong teacher. And like, I'll watch her with my kids, or like, especially when they were younger, and my nephews and nieces, and she could just repeat herself over and over and over again. But that is not me. That skipped right over me, because I say something once, and if you don't get it, we
Right.
got a problem. Like, you don't get my teaching, I don't teach good enough for you to understand. We're gonna have to
Right.
find somebody else to teach you how to do this, because I can't repeat myself over and over again. It's just, it kills me. But
Yeah.
I know that as a leader, I have to do that. I must
Yeah.
be okay with repeating myself.
Yeah.
And if I need to repeat myself a lot, it's probably because I'm not communicating properly. But sometimes I'm like, man, I don't want to say this again. So yeah,
Right.
kudos
Right.
to you
Right.
for doing that and teaching, because that's definitely not something that I'm able to do.
Teaching really forces you to sharpen your patience skills
Yeah.
because you do have to repeat yourself over and over again.
Mhm.
And you're going to have those students that never write anything down. And I just look at them and go, how are you going to remember this?
I'm that way. Like right now, like this is recorded on video, it's recorded on
Right.
audio, and I'm still writing down notes, because
Exactly.
that's how I consume knowledge. Like, so often it's like, okay, I'm
Right.
gonna jot this down also, even though I'm gonna go back and I'll probably listen to it 4 times too. So
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
yeah.
Oh, God.
So tell us a little bit, before we wrap things up. Tell us a little bit about your self-paced course, because we hadn't talked about that any.
Yeah, so my self-paced course is called QuickBooks Bootcamp. It is pretty much 4 courses in one. So, course number 1 walks step by step through how to set up QuickBooks Online for your business. And I cover service-based businesses, product-based businesses in that training. And then I walk through how to manage your sales, right? So, how to record those invoices, those sales receipts, manage those deposits in QuickBooks. I talk about how to record your expenses. That's the third part of the course. And then the fourth and final is how to generate those reports and read and review and understand your financial reports as well. And
How
so
long
it's
does
kind
it
of like a 4-in-1.
how long does it typically take to complete the course?
I would say if someone were to actually watch the videos and then do everything I'm saying, because you literally can play a video, pause it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
do exactly what I said in your QuickBooks.
Hmm.
If you're doing that every day, I would say you can get through the course in a couple of weeks easily.
Okay. So
Maybe 10, 14 days.
okay, so it's that in depth. It's not like,
Mhm.
it's not so like high level that it's like,
Oh, no. It
okay,
is
yeah.
step by step. Yeah,
Oh,
step by
perfect.
step because again, my audience for my book and the course is the do-it-yourself person who, some people feel like they're not even good at numbers.
Hmm.
And they're like, they don't have a clue what accounting or bookkeeping is.
Hmm.
It's for that person.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
so yeah, so if you've got even a little bit of knowledge of bookkeeping and accounting, then you'll probably get through it a lot faster. But
Gotcha.
yeah, it is literally that detailed.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the last thing that I'm going to ask you about is plugins that capture receipts and stuff like that. So like, we use a program called Dext, where
Mhm.
the like the technicians, they'll scan a receipt if they used a credit card, and even like our invoices from supply houses, they'll scan it through Dext, and then Dext transcribes it and sends it over to
Yeah.
QuickBooks.
Mhm.
What's your thoughts on using stuff like that? Is it important to capture those receipts, or like, is it okay to just kind of write in the receipts? Like, is it better to have a actual image of the receipt?
Yes. Receipts is one of those areas that I actually teach my clients to automate. And so, very similar to what you just described with Dext, I also teach my business owners how to use the QuickBooks Online app. Because QuickBooks Online, if you've got the app on
Mhm.
your iPad or you can download it on your phone, like you said, you can just take a quick picture of it. It reads the image, it uploads the image to QuickBooks, and you can toss that paper. I
Yeah.
am anti-paper.
Yeah.
Yes,
Same.
I'm a CPA. Yes, I'm an accountant, but I don't have a bunch of filing cabinets around here.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is like, no,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. So I'm very a big proponent of paperless. And so absolutely it's important to have the image because that's your proof that you've
Mm-hmm.
paid for something. And then having it uploaded to the software. QuickBooks Online will attempt to categorize it for you. So let's say you've uploaded a receipt for gas. It will, put the category there for you if you've uploaded that particular merchant before. And if not, once you tell it, it
Mm-hmm.
remembers, right? The next time you upload a receipt for gas, it knows, oh, this goes to this category. So I'm a big proponent of that documentation. And I think it's just easier for people to manage receipts electronically than to try
Yeah.
to have envelopes of receipts everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Back several years ago, a buddy of mine, he has a trucking company, and I'd ride with him, and he'd get fuel, and he'd toss it in like a Ziploc bag that's above his visor, and
Yeah.
like a good wind gust and through his truck window could probably take
And
all
they're
those
not.
receipts. Yeah, and so yeah, that's
Well, one of the things that people don't realize about receipts too, and I actually had to learn this, is in the beginning, I would do the same thing. I had this nice little envelope. I tossed all my receipts in there. And then at the end of the year, I was good about pulling them out and starting to review them. Well, what happens is that ink fades. So
yes.
some of the receipts I couldn't even read any longer. And I was like,
Nope.
are you kidding me?
Yep.
I never would have thought of that would happen until it did.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've had that exact same
So,
thing
yeah.
happen to me. So with the app, with the QuickBooks app,
Mhm.
if you have employees, do you have because that's going to give them access to all your QuickBooks if they download the app. Is that correct?
No. So you can actually set up certain users to just have access to certain areas of your QuickBooks. So that's what's nice about it. If you just need an employee to have access to enter their time and upload receipts, then you can give them just that level of access and they won't be able to see your books.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
That's
like if you have, oh, no, go ahead.
well, I have that app for the podcast. So when we go and
Mhm.
travel and go into like expos and stuff like that, that's what I do. I scan using the QuickBooks app.
Yeah.
But I was looking at it and I was like, if I gave this access to, everybody that works for me in the HT companies, they would
Mhm.
have like basically what I'm looking at is I have access to the whole QuickBooks, so they would have access to the
Right.
whole QuickBooks as well. So not that I don't trust them, it's just that I don't
Right.
want them going in there and making a mistake and hitting the wrong buttons and screwing all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff up.
Yeah, and that information is need to know. I mean, a lot of business owners, not that they don't trust them, but the employees don't need access to that type of
Right.
information.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you absolutely should limit that. Now, depending on what subscription level you have, because there's QuickBooks Online Simple Start Plus, Essentials, and Advanced. Now, the QuickBooks Advanced has the most in-depth user permissions. Like you can get really, really detailed with it if you need to.
Yeah, but that's
And
expensive and
so
I'm cheap.
that's
Remember?
the
We
high
talked about
level plan.
we talked about me being cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the high level plan. But the other plans do still allow you to limit the access, just not
Okay.
as much as the high level plan does. Yeah, definitely.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you about and Trevor Eaton is in LinkedIn and is on here, and he actually mentioned you can also set up a Google Drive or an email. I think I know what he's talking about, but I'm not 100% sure on that. As far as saving it all into a Google Drive, saving the receipts. And
You can save them all into a Google Drive. I still like the idea of uploading them to the software because it not only uploads the image, but it also go ahead and categorizes it so you can record it. So you're doing two things in one when you upload it to the app. Now, the email he's referring to, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but QuickBooks allows you to set up a custom email. So if you have payments that come out automatically, like a Zoom, Calendly, and you know how they email you, oh, your credit card's been charged, here's your receipt. You can actually forward that email to your QuickBooks email. It will upload it and record that for you. And I do that all the time.
Let me ask you this. what happens if you have your credit card attached to your QuickBooks as
QuickBooks.
well?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then it shows the transaction on your credit card, but then you've already emailed that receipt in. Is it going to try and double record that?
Great question. So what happens is when you go into the credit card transactions area, you'll see the transaction and it'll say match, which means
Oh,
it's found the receipt you uploaded. Are these one and the same transaction? You click match because they are.
mhm.
So that way you don't duplicate the
What happens
transactions.
if it doesn't match because it's like got one thing that's kind of off?
If it doesn't match, then you definitely want to make sure that you don't duplicate. So if you've got your
Yeah.
credit card attached, like you said, the transactions are uploaded,
Mhm.
and you know you forwarded the receipt, but it didn't find a match, you can actually click find a match and go and
Mhm.
find it and
Okay.
tell it, hey, this belongs with this.
So if you know that it's going to automatically do it, then that's a
Hmm.
no-brainer. But like, so for
Hmm.
like Dex on there, and I might start just doing it through QuickBooks now. But on Dex, I have like my email that I
Hmm.
can just I do that with like my vendor invoices where like
Right.
it automatically comes in and it forwards to Dex through that
Hmm.
email, and then Dex transcribes it and stuff. But I might just go ahead and set it up to do it straight to QuickBooks so that we don't have to go through another step of looking at
Yeah.
Dex and
Yeah.
approving that and figuring all
Yeah.
the categories out and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard Dex is a great product, but for me, I'm very kind of frugal like you in that I'm like, I'm already paying for QuickBooks, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
until I see a need to use something else.
That's a no-brainer for sure. I think that the biggest thing
Mhm.
for us was the technicians out in the field, like
Okay.
getting their receipts from like Lowe's and Home Depot, and they can just snap it right into Dex real fast and
Right.
be done with it because
Yeah.
um, I wasn't sure about the app and the access on the app. So
Okay. Gotcha.
that makes a lot. I mean, yeah, that's some things to think about there for sure because
Hmm.
Dex isn't free. This far from free.
Right.
It's not cheap, but it's one of those things where like with us being remote
Yeah.
and paperless, so
Hmm.
it's one of the things that I just knew I was gonna have to spend money on, and so I just kind of
Right.
so like, okay, I'm gonna spend
Yeah.
money on it
Made
and
the
do it.
investment.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
so my last questions, and I promise this is my last question because I've already said this twice now. But
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
the receipts versus a credit card statement. Can a credit card statement suffice if you get audited or whatever
Hmm.
as the receipt itself?
Yes. So definitely one of the things that I recommend is you try to use a credit card or a debit card for all of your purchases. Because that way, if you do lose a receipt, which it happens, you still have that record on your credit card statement or your debit card statement. So absolutely, it can serve as a proof of purchase. Yep. For
Okay, so
audits and for taxes. Yeah.
all right. So now, whenever you're a solopreneur and you're like just starting out and it's you
Hmm.
and you might have another technician or you might have somebody
Hmm.
else working with you that has a credit card, but for the most part, it's just you.
Hmm.
Whenever you're using the credit card invoice as your record keeping, what
You
happens
mean
if
the
you
statement?
yeah, statement. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
The what happens if you mix some personal purchases in with that on there? I mean, because
Yeah.
that can get kind of tricky in there
Messy.
if you yeah messy for sure. Because
Yeah.
and it's not
Mhm.
it's most of the times I think that people tend to do it because they're just out of habit
Yeah.
or they're not really thinking about it whenever they pull out their credit card because they all day long they've been pulling it out for work stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's one of probably the things I see a lot with new clients is the commingling of personal and business funds. So whether it's you're using, credit card, business credit card for personal and business or a personal card for personal and business.
Hmm.
Um, it really is an issue.
Hmm.
I recommend that you keep personal and business separate. And it does take some, just
Yeah,
you got to get into the habit of doing it, right?
right.
Even myself in the beginning, I was like, what's the point of having separate personal and business? Because I still had a regular job. My business was my side gig,
Right.
and my paycheck was funding part of my business anyway. So I was like, what's the point? You know? But at the end of the day, the key is that you want to keep those business expenses separate, because one, you really want to keep track of how much money am I funneling into this business, right? How much am I investing? And it's difficult to know if everything's commingled into one account.
Yeah.
Two, the IRS frowns upon commingling business and personal. If you ever get audited, you're going to be it's going to be a lot.
They're going to rake you across the coals for that one.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you this. So what if, okay, so if the IRS is here, just exit the chat for a few minutes.
I was about to say, don't get me in trouble, Tersh.
No, so like there are certain times where it's like, if I pay for this particular item, it's going to have to come out of my personal checking account, that I'm going to have to take the money out of the business to put into my personal checking account. So I'm going to have to pay taxes on it at that point, and then pay taxes on it whenever I purchase the item. But this item happens to be something that is also used for the company too, or could be used for the company. So could you purchase it through the company and then classify it as like a owner's comp or something like that?
Yeah. So like if you do have, everyone has dealt with this at some point in time. You've got, personal expenses and business commingled. All the personal items need to be categorized as owner draw.
Draw, yeah.
It's an owner draw, which means it's a personal expense. It's not business. And so that's the appropriate way to handle it. Okay. Where you get in trouble is if you've categorized something is for personal, right? You got a chart, you have some money you spent at Macy's, right? It wasn't for business.
That's not for uniforms.
If you try to throw that into a miscellaneous account and say, oh, that was for business, that's where people get in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you've clearly categorized your personal as personal, that is the correct way to handle it. And if you're audited, you won't be dinged for that. But you will be strongly advised to have a separate business account and have a separate business credit card. Okay. Now, a lot of people who are startups, maybe they don't qualify for a business credit card, and that's fine. Apply for the credit card under your personal, but use it strictly for business. That's what I did in the beginning. It was a personal credit card, but I did not use the credit card for personal reasons. And you have to get disciplined and just, tell yourself, nope, that card is not for this reason.
It's funny. I did practice. I did the exact same thing whenever I was first starting out. And this was like long time ago. And like, I didn't have any credit cards personally prior to that. I mean, I just never seen the need in it. I was raised that like, don't get debt, don't get a credit card because you'll get in trouble.
Exactly.
Like, and my parents knew that if I had a credit card, I'd spend it on some stupid stuff. So they're like, no, don't get a credit card. And so I got a credit card and I didn't qualify for a business one, like you said. So I signed up for a personal one, and it was $500. And I was like, what am I going to do with $500? And so I literally would use it one day, pay it off the next day, use it one day, pay it, and so
that credit.
And that's exactly what it did. And it didn't take long for them to increase it. But then I actually got a notification a couple of weeks ago stating that particular card hasn't been used in so long that it like is affecting my credit. It's for inactivity. And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that credit card because it's a personal credit card, but I was using it for the business. And then once I got a business credit card, I just quit using that personal credit card anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny. That's you forget about things like that after you've been in business for a little while. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Well, if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best way for that to happen?
Yes. So people can go to CrystallynnShelton.com. So it's CrystallynnShelton.com /podcast with an S. So on that page, I've actually included 2 gifts for your listeners.
Oh, cool.
There is a download that is your first 7 days in QuickBooks. So it's step-by-step what to do that first week if you are brand new to QuickBooks. The other download on there is how to close your books and prepare for tax season. And so those 2 downloads are 100% free. I've also got information on there about the course, QuickBooks Bootcamp. And so they can check that out as well. It's a 10% discount for all your listeners on there as well. There's a coupon code. So
sweet. Well,
yeah.
I appreciate that. Cool deal. I appreciate you hanging out with us and answering questions and stuff.
Absolutely.
If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And you can reach out to me too, servicebusinessmastery.com. And yeah, thank you for hanging out, and we'll talk again soon. But until we talk again next time, I hope you'll have a wonderful and safe week. And yeah, we'll see you later.
Thanks so much, Tersh.
Yes, ma'am. See you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.